Welcome to the Big Idea, Big Moves podcast. This is where we talk to high performers from all walks of life who are redefining what it means to achieve whole life success. And I'm your host, Jamie Allison. And today's guest is an absolute powerhouse, someone who's transformed her own life, and now through some of the things she's doing is helping others do the same as well. So really important conversation coming up. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know that we have a connection with Epitome Sportswear, and they are something we really enjoy for a couple of different reasons. One, it can be for those kind of high performance people that want to be able to utilize the apparel that way, but it's also just people wanting to be able to get out. I mean, if it's fall now, things like that, people are just going out and maybe going to into an arena with their kids. It may also be going for a hike and a nice fall hike. All of those things, it's set up nicely for that. But what we really like as well is that it's important for them to give back to the communities they serve as well. And so they're working to impact the inequities in opportunity for girls and women in sport. And for that reason, a portion of their profits go directly to organizations and initiatives that support girls in sports. So cool from that end. If you want to take a look at it, you can go through our Instagram profile, and inside there you'll see a discount code as well. And so take a look at it there. Or you can just go directly to them. It's Epitome Sportswear. So it's EPITOME sportswear.com. And check it out and see if it's something that you're interested in. So really excited to have Marie Chaker with us today. She is a journalist, a professional bodybuilder, and author of an upcoming book. Her book's called Lift, How Women Can Reclaim Their Physical Power and Transform Their Lives. After overcoming kind of her own challenges, and she found strength training, which not only transformed her physically, but also reshaped her confidence and how she moves through the world. So we're going to talk about some of those things today. Really excited to do that. First of all, Anne, I know you're busy, lots of things going on, so thanks for taking the time to join us today. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, well, you know what? You have a really interesting journey story, I guess. You know, a lot of people that we bring on, we just kind of want to find out how did you get here a little bit, and yours is different. You know, doing kind of heavy into journalism, doing all those things, and really you've kind of changed and done a few things recently that are a little different. But why don't you walk us through a little bit about where you're coming from and how you've arrived where you are now?
So yeah, I longtime reporter for the Wall Street Journal, actually sat down a few weeks ago to launch myself fully into the book. But
Hmm.
uh I guess my journey into bodybuilding began after I'd had my second daughter. Um, and just kind of a series of like horrible things happened in my life. Having the baby was wonderful, but I
Yeah,
kind of struggled with postpartum depression. And then, like, it was like within weeks, one thing happened after another. My marriage ended,
yeah,
and my father died, and I'd never been much of a drinker, uh, but you know, I would start, just kind of taking a half glass of wine at
yeah,
night before putting the kids down to bed. And pretty soon that half a glass turned into a full glass, and then that turned into more. And then before I knew it, I was, drinking all the time
yeah,
and just really kind of started not recognizing who I was in the mirror anymore. Like,
yeah,
I didn't feel good. I didn't look good. And all of this came into a head. I would say, I think it was like in 2018, early 2019, my oldest daughter played hockey and I was coaching her little girls team. And we went to a hockey tournament in Southern Maryland. And I remember getting into the car. It was with my mom and just couldn't wait to get to the tournament because there was a mini bar. We get there and the first thing I do when we go to the hotels, I just kind of checked out. There's a wellness room, a fitness room.
yeah,
And in this fitness room, there was a hockey mom who was lifting weights and dumbbells and barbells. She looked incredible. and I looked terrible. And I'm looking at her, and I was just like, whatever this woman is doing, I want that. Like, I want to be just like her.
Yeah.
So I went up to her and I was kind of like, what's your deal? What's your story? What, like, are you in CrossFit? Like, what? And she said, oh, I do bikini competitions.
Yeah.
And I thought that's really weird. I'd never heard of anyone doing bikini competition, but I was intrigued. And so she thought, oh yeah, I compete and I have a coach and I do macros, da da da. And whatever, like, I just kind of was like, well, that's good for you. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I kept thinking about her. And, eventually reached out and got the name of her coach. And she said, oh, she'll work with you on like nutrition and fitness stuff,
Yeah.
even if you don't want to compete. So that's how it started. I started working with this online fitness coach, and
Yeah. Yeah.
everything got better. Um,
And you talked to because I think your story there about, I mean, obviously you had a lot of a lot of challenges personally that, created some of that environment and everything for you. But I think a lot of people listening probably understand and have some connection to, maybe not feeling their best because of how, things have happened in their life at that time. What is, I mean, obviously, being inspired by somebody else is part of it. But how did you get past that kind of whole idea that, maybe you were drinking too much, all of those different things? What was it? You started doing it and that created it, or is it, okay, I decided to change my life and kind of went right all into something else? Like, how did that show up for you?
yeah, I have a very kind of all or nothing, and this, like in this case, worked for me pretty well.
Yeah,
But it's either like I'm like potato chip bags like on the couch, or like I'm all into something.
yeah,
And in this case, it was just kind of like this pervasive sense that like this is not working. I don't feel good. This is not working. And I like kind of went 360 in the
hmm,
whole other direction. So
yeah, yeah,
and I guess in this case it worked for me.
yeah, yeah,
I often say like, and this is actually something I've struggled with, is like not to be like, to find the happy middle in things is very
mhm,
important. Because my knee-jerk tendency is to be so like all one way or the other way. But yeah, bodybuilding in one case was kind of like going all into this whole fitness thing to an extreme. But
yeah.
I enjoy it.
Well, and I know that that in your book as well, you talk about kind of breaking free a bit from kind of diet culture and all of those things that maybe were kind of aligned with your life before. How did uh, how did that process work for you? I mean, was it you talk a bit about how it created a confidence that you didn't have before. Talk about that a little bit from your perspective.
Yeah. So my approach to food was
Mhm.
one of very much of like, overdoing, and then like, oh my God, like feeling total guilt, and then not, saying I'll never did it, and then going back into old habits. And then
Yeah,
the thing I guess with bodybuilding and food is it has really taught me to rethink my approach to eating and nutrition, and really kind of taking things back to basics, and like um, treating food really like very simply, in terms of like I prepare my own meal, like, I do a big shop at the beginning of the week, and I really like
yeah,
take the time um to plan out my food
yeah,
pretty carefully. Uh so maybe we can talk more about this, but
yeah,
the tracking, the focus on protein, it's all kind of, I would say it's been about putting things more in the positive, like how food and nutrition can benefit me, can do something for me physically and mentally,
yeah,
rather than like, oh my gosh, this thing like that is making me guilty. like having to take it away and like so I would say that's been the main thing is like treating food as a value added rather than
Right.
something to be taken away.
Yeah, that's I mean we've had lots of people have talked about it as once you start thinking of it as fuel not just for your body
Hmm.
but fuel for your mind and how rather than it being this other thing that you have to deal with too. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Um, so one thing I do wonder is being a journalist for so long too, how has that like did that do anything to kind of frame how you looked at fitness and how you looked at kind of what you were doing as well?
Yeah. So, I would say the thing that got me to writing the book was that something dramatic was happening. You know, as I started lifting weights and finding strength, you know, it was so clear to me that there was something transformative happening that like I was performing differently at
Mhm.
work. Like
Yeah.
like I had a new confidence, a new way that I walked and moved through the world. Like there was something, it was almost like I was coming home into a body that had always been meant to be.
Yeah.
And it was so profound. Like my whole life I'd always wanted to be thin, right? I'd always like, it's like every message as women we are ever fed is about thinness as the
Yeah.
equivalent of like the ideal, the beauty.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you see it in the packages of food when you go through the grocery store.
Yeah.
You hear it, you feel it in the kinds of compliments you're given from the moment you're a little girl. It's like everything, and it's
Yeah.
the thing that I always failed at, you know, and it was like suddenly when lifting weights and getting strong became like a centerpiece of my life, like everything got better, like
Yeah.
dramatically better. Um, and so I was like, the journalist in me was like, wait a minute, wait a minute. Like, what is going on? So that was the impetus to doing the book. And I wanted to really kind of take a big thing, like not like just a fitness book, but really kind of a big think book about
Yeah.
what the fuck is the story of skinny and why did it come to be since
Yeah.
it's so clearly wrong. So the book is really a journalistic narrative about this arc of like how skinny came to be and how really the more I like poked into it, that like the real OG women's physique
Mhm.
is a strong one. But
Yeah.
it's only, you know, in the course of the last 150 years that there's been this like, you know, construct to, you know, make women smaller and less secure in themselves
Yeah.
when our original body type is really strong. We are very strong creatures.
Mhm.
We, you know, live longer than men. Our bodies bring life into the world. There's all kinds of studies that show like how much more we can tough things out and
Right.
are more fatigue resistant than men in a lot of ways. So the book is really an exploration of like, you know, what about that? And
Yeah.
let's build more of that rather than like this constant, like fairly recent obsession to make less of ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting you say that. So when you've gone through this process of writing the book, has there been any change in that? It's something I ask often because, this podcast has a lot of kind of strong women in more than one way, not just from a fitness perspective, but also very resilient or strong kind of entrepreneurs. Have you seen a change positively in people's perception around that, or is it being perpetuated, I guess, in the opposite way?
Mm. You mean like when I tell people about the book and my
Yeah,
findings, like what's
yeah,
been the reaction? I think like overall, women are like, oh my God, yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Like there's been like, you know, what's been interesting is just I worked on the book for about 3.5, almost 4 years.
Hmm.
And just in that period of time, you know, there's been a huge upsurge in interest in women and strength training.
Yeah.
So, you know, uh, I'm entering like a menopausal transition period
Hmm.
in myself. I'm entering the 50s, so I'm like hyper aware of like,
Yeah.
the messaging around menopause is like very much about strength and the
Hmm.
importance of strength training for
Yeah.
women as a, an aging preventive thing. And I've just seen like at the gym, there are so many more. I mean, when I started my bodybuilding journey, I was like an anomaly. There were very few women at the gym.
Hmm.
And now I would say there are almost as many women in the gym as men. It's been like that trajectory has been really dramatic in the last couple of years. So,
Yeah.
yeah, the timing of all of this is fortuitous for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And how did you know, I guess role models from a standpoint, I mean, well, maybe just how does that work for you? Because do you have a couple of people that you really look to that are okay, those are the people I want to kind of, look towards, or is it you take a little bit away from kind of everybody that you deal with? How do you approach that yourself?
Yeah. So I compete in a natural, like drug tested bodybuilding federation called the OCB, the Organization for Competition Bodies, I think it is. Um, and I have a coach, and this coach has other clients like
Hmm.
me, and we call ourselves teammates, even though we're not on a team per se. But
Yeah,
we're all in like this Facebook group, and a lot of us like
yeah,
have met at competitions, and like we do an annual retreat from time to time. So we've met, and like
yeah,
some of them I have not met, but we still feel like we know each other. It's really weird from this like closed Facebook group that we're in.
yeah,
Um, and it's been really great because we post all the time about like, little weird like food discoveries. Like I saw
yeah,
this product at Aldi's,
yeah,
like or like, we do like these Flex Friday pictures, like,
yeah,
look at like, look at my new bicep.
yeah, yeah.
And I like it's just like a very positive like you know
Like a community,
space
basically, right?
community,
Yeah,
yeah. And there's women in there that like I totally look up to, and we're from
nice.
all different walks of life, and it's just it's just been a really wonderful experience. As journalists, you go to work every day, you're always around kind of the same people.
Yeah,
And being in this sport, like I've just been exposed to like a totally different subset of people I would have never met before. And it's just like enriched my life in ways that like
yeah.
I could have never imagined.
Very cool. And how about goal setting? Because you've
Mhm.
probably got fitness goal setting that you do kind of with your coach and things like that. But on a broader scale, you obviously have things you I'm sure want to do with your book and with your kind of business and all of those things too. So how do you approach that at a time when you also have your own kind of personal commitments and everything too to be able to manage through that?
So yeah, goals wise, I'm gonna be competing again this season. I'm gonna do a couple competitions in the spring, and
Yeah,
then we'll kind of wait and see what happens with the book launch, and then I'll hopefully gonna do another couple competitions in the summer.
yeah.
So I've got like my bodybuilding goals
Hmm.
set up
Hmm.
now for the year. And then the book is launching in June. And I am in kind of brand building mode. This is all
Yeah,
new to me. So
yeah,
like
yeah,
I've started writing a newsletter.
yeah.
I've started um piecing together the bones of a website and
Hmm.
thinking about like speaking more
Yeah,
about the topic I've been writing about so much, and I'm gonna hopefully start doing some keynote speeches.
Yeah.
So I'm working on that. So this is like a
And Marie,
whole
how, yeah,
new
you
ball
said it's
game.
new to you. So
Yeah.
there are lots of people that kind of like to kind of think through things like this as well. Has there been something that's jumped out at you as, wow, that is way harder than I thought it was going to be at the start? Is there something that like you've really had a real learning experience from through building something like this?
So funny because yeah, like all of this is a lot of work.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
there's just so much like when you're in this mo you know what it is, like this social media expectation, like you're supposed to be posting on, LinkedIn and
Yeah.
there's this Substack thing and there's you could it's like drinking from a fire hose. You could be
Hmm.
doing this all day. But yet, and then, handling the edits of the book and, you know,
Yeah.
it's a lot of work. You know, the days are very long, but I also feel like it doesn't feel like work
Yeah.
because it's mine. When you own something and you feel so strongly about it and it's your story,
Yeah.
it's just very, very different. And that has been kind of the most heartening thing is that like I'm working my tail off, but I'm also like, it doesn't feel like work. It's, it's kind of really a beautiful thing. So
Yeah.
I'm in a good place.
Yeah, yeah. And how do you yourself kind of approach, being able to balance those things as much as possible? Because you could do you could be all in just on kind of the bodybuilding side. You could be all in on your
Yeah.
building an entrepreneurial brand, all of those things. But how do you balance those off right now? Are there things that you're doing yourself that way?
Yeah. I would say you've got to, or I've had to let go of this idea of perfection. Like,
Yeah,
there's always going to be stuff that's going to go. Like, in
yeah,
my case, like, my house is a mess, and there are tons of like things that I should take care of that I haven't gotten around to yet.
yeah,
And it's just, it's, it doesn't matter. Like, it
yeah,
really doesn't matter. I feel like as long as my kids are okay, and they're such good kids, and like,
yep,
um, as long as everybody's healthy and, there's food on the table and like
yeah.
everything's
Giving
like
yourself a
rolling.
bit of a
It's
bit of grace around this kind of stuff
yeah,
that's
yeah,
just
yeah.
living.
I
Yeah,
I mean, my priorities are, health, my kids, my training, and that everything, family, everything else, like, the laundry is behind or house is a mess. Like, I really
yeah,
don't care.
yeah, yeah. No, it's a good approach from that end for sure.
Yeah.
Um, So, you talked a little bit about, now, I guess, so you've got your kids, you've got all those things, but you've also learned all of this stuff for yourself from both writing the book and also just personal experience around, how you feel your body, do all those things. Do you find that has that impacted your relationship with your kids or how you deal with the things with your kids as well?
Mm. So yeah, like my kids are pretty like proud of the fact like that
Yeah,
their mom is a bodybuilder. They think it's cool. And
yeah,
I've started like lifting with them a little bit. I mean, they get
yeah,
bored. They're still little,
sure.
and they get bored pretty quickly. But I think it's good that they've sort of been introduced to like weights in the basement and seeing their
Yeah,
mom like hoist a barbell and like wanting to be part of it in some way. And like then they
yeah,
get sick of it and they move on. But like it's not like this foreign concept to them to see
sure.
like a woman wanting to get bigger and being
Yeah.
strong. And I think that especially for my older daughter who's now 13
Mhm.
and she's like eating like crazy because she's
Yeah,
growing and
yeah,
she's athletic. So I've been really careful about the messaging that like I use with her.
yeah,
Always keeping like keeping things in the positive, like, well, it's
Yeah.
great, you're a growing girl, you're an athlete, you
Yeah.
should want seconds, and like,
Yeah.
yeah, lifting weights will help you in your sport, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's just it's been good, I think, all around.
Awesome. Well, so one thing that we ask everybody who's on the show, Anne-Marie, is to a couple of specific tips that people can maybe take away. And I'm thinking, there are lots of people listening that hear your story and probably relate to at least the front end of it. And maybe you're looking, how do I get into kind of the position that you're in now? But they're probably busy professionals, busy parents, things like that. Do you have any tips on how people can kind of integrate fitness with their own care and growth and things like that as well? Do you have any things that have worked for you or that you suggest, especially from writing your book?
Yeah. Couple things I would say. I think the fitness world right now is like a heavily marketed thing.
Hmm.
Anybody who's on social media can see it. Even like in the morning, we watch, when the kids get up for school and I'm making lunch boxes, the news is on.
Yeah.
And there's always like this commercial that comes on, and it's like for this like women's fitness brand, and she's blonde and she's thin and she's like doing gymnastics by the ocean, and like my kids are around and we're looking at this, and it's like that's not what it is, like nobody looks like that,
Yeah.
and and it's just not what it is. So I would say, like, please don't compare yourself to anyone else. Like
Hmm.
that's like my number one thing. It's something I've had to be aware. I'm a very like competitive person, and so
Yeah.
often my knee jerk has been like to compare myself to others, and like to just like look at the image of the blonde gymnast and just like, I'm failing because I'm not like that, like, no, I'm never gonna be like that, and that's okay. For me, fitness is like, it's a commitment to oneself. Like, we all have a lot going on. And for me to like get to the gym every day for like an hour is like my one unshakable thing. And I don't look like the gymnast. I look like, usually like I'll wear shorts and a crappy t-shirt, but I'll tell you, I'll get through my 5 or 6 things and they'll get done, and I will do it again the next day and again the next day. And it's not glamorous, and that's what sports is. It doesn't look pretty. And so just like taking, like, I would, I think as women, we get fed so much crap, so much marketing, and just please don't put that on yourself, and just give yourself, like, make it part of your self-care, and just give yourself. And I'll often say, like, I'm tired and I don't feel like, I'll just get there and do one thing, and often that one thing will lead to another thing, and by the time all is said, you'll have done 3, 4, 5 things, and that'll be better than nothing. So
Yeah.
I don't know, that was
No,
long and rambling, but
no, not at all, not at all. That's it's great advice, and I think it's also it's pretty relatable to a lot of people, which is important. Um, so I'm sure there are many people who've listened that think, okay, I know your book will be coming up, but I know that you can kind of take a look at what it looks like and maybe even pre-order and things like that, and also following you. So what are the best ways of doing that, Anne-Marie?
oh my gosh. So I am on Instagram, and my handle is Anne Marie Chaker, all one word.
Mhm.
And I write a Substack, a newsletter called Lift, and it's about all things fitness, approach to mental well-being. I've just recently started, um, and I would love for you guys to subscribe. You don't have to pay anything. You can subscribe for free. And if you wish to contribute there, you can, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
Um, and And that's it. My book is on pre-order now. You can get it on Amazon. And it'll be in bookstores in June.
Great. Well, what we'll do as well is that we'll put all those links in the show notes as well. So if anyone
Okay.
missed that, go in there and we'll have the link through to your Instagram and all of those things, but also your Substack as well, which I think people will take a lot away from. And there's lots of people here who might want to kind of contribute and connect with that community too. So that's very cool. Um, if you haven't hit subscribe on the podcast, do that now, as we have great people every week, just like Anne Marie. Yeah, again, I know things are quite busy with you being able to kind of do all the things that you're doing, Anne Marie. So really appreciate you sharing your story and also some of your expertise and tips with our audience today.
Thank you so much, Jamie.
All right. And everybody else, we will talk again soon on Big Idea, Big Moves.